All right, good evening, everybody. This is going to be an audio check here. Current time is 7:04 p.m. Eastern. We'll be live here getting rolling with a briefing for tomorrow's severe weather event. Give me a thumbs up in chat if you guys can hear me okay. We're going to hang out for a bit and then dive into some data. I know chat's delayed just a bit here before I can see it. So once you guys get caught up here, let's go ahead and give me a thumbs up in chat. Would be appreciated. We'll go ahead and get started. Let me know where you guys are watching from. Be a good question to start things off with. There goes chat. Brittany with a thumbs up. Thank you, Brittany. Appreciate that. Who else is in chat tonight? We have Felicia, Daniel, Faith. There we go. Chat starting to catch up. So we are live here tonight. This is currently March 25th, 2026. We have a severe weather risk for tomorrow. It's a level 3 risk. So that's when people really start paying attention usually. So we have that risk across northern Indiana. Around it's a slight risk, and further south in that dark green color is a low-end marginal risk. Back to chat here. We got Putnam County, Vincennes, South Bend, Mishawaka, Kokomo, Corona, Randolph, Mitchell, New Haven, Lowell. We have a good variety in here tonight. So let's go ahead and start off. Appreciate you guys tuning in, watching. I am Ryan. This is the Indiana Weather Network as well as Indiana Weather Online. We're going to focus next 5 or 10 minutes here on talking about tomorrow's severe weather risk. As we get some more people filing in here, we'll go ahead and start off with the SPC Outlook. This is your forecast for severe weather from the Storm Prediction Center out of Norman, Oklahoma. As you can see on your screen, the good old, we call it avocado. It's a little bit of an inside joke in terms of weather. The avocado is here. Nice orange enhanced risk across northern Indiana. Stretches down to about Indianapolis I-70 region, and then further south than that down to about Bloomington. Level 2, slight risk. And then in the dark green color, it is what's called a marginal risk, level 1 out of 5. In the light green color down by Evansville, Jasper, and Corydon areas, that is not a severe risk, but it is a general thunderstorm risk. So you could still see some storms, but overall severe threat is lower as you move further south. Hazards tomorrow, I'm sure you guys are hearing it and seeing it all across social media. The main concern that we have here at IWN is large hail. From the SPC, let's start at the very far southern tip here. Down by in that brown color, down by Jasper, Bloomington, Vincennes area, these are color-coded based on probabilities. So, for example, in the brown color, further south, you have a probability of 5 to 14% chance of seeing a large hailstone, which is a quarter size or larger, within 25 miles of you. So down there in that brown color, that is your probability. Further north in the yellow zone, it equates to a 15 to 29% probability, so a bit higher, of seeing a large hailstone within 25 miles of you. In the red zone, that's our biggest concern tomorrow night. That is a 30 to 44% probability of seeing a damaging large hailstone within 25 miles of you. So for example, if you live in Lafayette, you have a 30 to 44% chance of seeing a quarter-size hailstone within 25 miles of Lafayette. That applies for anywhere in that red zone. All right. Aside from hail, we do have the wind risk as well. It is basically equivalent to the hail risk. Same probability, color-coded to the exact same numbers. And then that also extends further south. It stops around in Jasper area. 5 to 14% chance in the brown color. Yellow color is 15 to 29% chance. In the red color, it is a 30 to 44% chance. Last but not least, there is a risk tomorrow for a couple tornadoes. We're going to talk about that risk here in just a second. But right now, in the green color, down by Bloomington, it is a 2 to 4% chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of you. In that red color, brown red color, it is a 5 to 9% chance. Now, you may have noticed there is what we call hatching, that black line that kind of crisscrosses everything. Those hatching indicate that we could see significant hazards. For hail, that means hail larger than a golf ball size. For the wind, that is wind over, I want to say 70 miles per hour. And then for tornadoes, that's either EF2 or greater. Everything here is hatched from the SPC, but it's very conditional. The wind and tornado threat is very conditional, especially the hail threat, definitely a hail risk here. But the tornado and wind threat is definitely more conditional. Let's talk about timing and why that risk is conditional tomorrow. Temperatures today, beautiful day today. Let's just say that. We have some rain moving in from west to east tonight. With some thunderstorms likely tonight, those are not going to be severe. So no worries tonight. Sleep in peace. Might be loud out there for some of you guys, but no severes expected tonight. Our threat ramps up tomorrow, Thursday night. Temperatures tomorrow are going to go into the mid 80s for western Indiana, and then mid to upper 70s for the eastern half of the state. Unless you're up by Gary, because of the lake breeze there coming off Lake Michigan, you guys are stuck in the 40s. So quite a big temperature difference up there in northwest Indiana. 47 being shown in Gary, 85 being shown in Rensselaer. So we have quite the difference. But overall, tomorrow, a bit on the warmer side here for spring standards. That warmth also comes with moisture. And as we know, we have a trigger for storms with that warm, moist air. That's your fuel for storms. Let's go ahead and dive into the future radar. This is your model's best guess at where and when storms are going to fire up. So looking at tonight, we did talk about thunderstorms tonight. There they are, 1 a.m. tonight. We have a couple scattered showers and storms ongoing. Again, those are not going to be severe tonight. It could just be a couple loud thunderstorms and heavy rain briefly, but overall no threat tonight. Those will move through as we push into the sunrise hours of Thursday. Those will clear the area by Thursday around sunrise, between sunrise and really, we'll call it noon. It'll be clearing out for later on Thursday. Most of Thursday, though, will be dry. Here's noon. We're dry. 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m. We're going to stop it right there. Our attention here really begins to ramp up here in the dinner time frame of 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. Take note, further north in Michigan, we do have that nice line of storms developing. That is what our attention is going to be turned to later on in the evening for tomorrow. By 6 p.m., we have a nice line developing across the I-94 corridor from Kalamazoo, Michigan, down through about Chicago, Illinois. By 7 o'clock, those storms are on our doorstep, if not already in Indiana. So right around 5 to 7 p.m. is going to be the start time for this event for North Indiana. But keep in mind, if you live down here in Indianapolis or even down here like Bloomington, Evansville area, your guys' risk is going to be much later. Keep that in mind. So you're going to start early, 5 to 7 p.m. up here in North Indiana, slowly working its way to the south. Here's 8 p.m. Very nasty looking cells here on the model, especially with Fort Wayne and the Elkhart area. But any one of these storms could really produce some very large hail. We see those nice pink and white cores, especially in the Fort Wayne cell here. That indicates we could see a couple, bigger hailstones in there for sure. Just kind of a picture of what the storms could look like tomorrow evening. It's just 8 o'clock. Here's 9 o'clock. Here's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. You're going to notice as we push this later off into the evening hours, the overall intensity of the storms looks to kind of weaken as we get later on in the night. But keep in mind, we're at midnight now, and models still say storms have not even hit Indianapolis yet. So keep that in mind as well. Pushing this later on, we're going to go 1, 2, 3 a.m. We're going to start noticing a little bit more of southward movement here. By 3 a.m., the storms are finally shown to really cross into the I-70 corridor. But at this time in the night, we've lost our storm fuel, and our severe threat should be much lower. So as we get later on in the evening, the threat should diminish with time. So for those of you who live along and south of I-70, the threat tomorrow is very conditional on how fast storms can get to you. And right now, our confidence in that happening is quite low. So even though you guys technically are under a level 2 risk from I-70 down to Bloomington, your threat looks to be right now, at least on the lower end. Our concern really is focused in tomorrow on the orange enhanced risk there you see on your screen. Anywhere in orange is really the highest threat, especially across that northern half of the orange area. Looking at the radar here, continues on into Friday morning. Here is 4 a.m. Here is 5 a.m. As we get to the sunrise hours of Friday, these are just general showers here. That should not be a severe concern. So really, the threat centered starting about 5 to 7 p.m. in North Indiana. It should be tapering off right around 1 to 3 a.m. across central Indiana before they turn into more garden variety showers and storms for South Indiana. The hazards and the ingredients here. Number one is hail. We have a very well stout updrafts as well as a good instability column through the atmosphere at the surface all the way up to 20 to 30,000 feet. We have a lot of instability there for these storms to tap into. That's going to be a hail concern here for North Indiana. Your instability is just one ingredient though. As you can see on your screen, we looked for about 500 to 750 at minimum for your storm fuel. We have close to 1,500 joules, close to 2,000 joules, we call it, of surface instability there across northern Indiana. So we have quite the unstable environment taking place throughout the night tomorrow. Couple that, though, with wind shear. We go into Friday. You're going to notice that the north half of the state here, by the, we're going to back it up here, dinner time frame, anywhere you see this color here, this is extremely strong wind shear. So the wind shear helps to organize those updrafts, also aiding not only in hail production, but the chance for damaging wind as well as a couple tornadoes. Now, our main concern tomorrow with the tornado threat and the wind threat, I think is going to be a very, very narrow window. Look at the ingredients here for Thursday evening. We're going to overlap the wind shear with our storm fuel. We're going to notice we get something called supercell composite. Anything larger than a 5 really grabs our attention. So as we look through the afternoon here, 2 p.m., there's no storms firing up yet. As we move this toward the dinner time frame, there's a very brief window here between 5 and we're going to say 9 p.m. or 5 to 8 p.m. where we have a nice conglomerate of ingredients coming together across northern Indiana, right here as these storms are pushing into the Fort Wayne area, for example. At 6 p.m. here, we see a nice blob of color. That's good for severe weather. 7 p.m. though, it starts to diminish, and by 8 p.m. it's pretty much gone. As those storms progress south, as we lose daytime heating, the instability will start to wane. So we do have a very brief window, we feel like, for anything tornadic-wise. So that highest concern for tornadoes, even though the threat from the SPC does include a good chunk of the state, we do feel that the threat is highest up here from basically Lafayette up to the up to the Michigan border. That's really our keying in, so to speak, of where we feel that risk is highest. Now, the damaging wind risk with these cells, back up here to the radar, also a little bit complicated, but follow with me here. When we see these cells individually by themselves, like right here there's one, right here there's one, right here there's one, they're not really forming into a line just yet. That tells us that the damaging wind risk is lower, but the hail risk is higher. So the large, very large hail risk should be highest as these storms are first entering the state across North Indiana. As they progress further south, though, they do start to congeal into a line. So if and when they do congeal into more of a line segment, at that point, damaging wind becomes a concern and hail starts coming down. So it's all going to depend tomorrow on timing for tornadoes, as well as storm mode for your hail versus wind threat. It's an all hazards threat, especially across north half of the state, but it's going to come down to a couple things working itself out to really get some damaging wind to occur or getting tornadoes to occur. Otherwise, the hail risk is very real, especially across the north half of the state. Timing, 5 to 7 p.m. to start. And it should be wrapping up right around 1 to 3 a.m. for your severe threat. The storms will continue into the sunrise hour of southern Michigan or southern Indiana at that point. With that said, that is all I have to share with you guys. I will take questions in the chat. If I missed anything, feel free to ask. We can go ahead and play it again for you guys from start to finish here. So this is, again, a model. Don't take it verbatim. It gives a general idea, a good consensus what could happen, but it could deviate slightly off in terms of timing and locations here. So 7 p.m., the storms are entering the state here tomorrow evening. 8 p.m., you should be at the worst between 7 and 8 p.m. or so. 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight. These are all Eastern times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 a.m. as those storms exit down into Kentucky. So really focus in north half of the state between, we're going to say 5 to 7 p.m. through about midnight to 1 a.m., perhaps a bit later for central Indiana. There is no risk for severe weather tonight, Kyle. Could have some storms, but overall risk for severe is quite low tonight. No problem, Robert. Yeah, our concern here, I know basically the entire state minus the bottom two tiers of counties is in a severe risk tomorrow. But what we're seeing on models, what we're kind of experiencing here with Indiana's weather, we typically will see the greatest threat across that orange area. So that's where our focus really is keyed in on, especially around the early mid-evening time frame, 7 o'clock or so, give or take a few hours. As they work south into the slight risk and marginal risk areas, they should become a lot weaker. At that point, our concerns should be dropping dramatically. And my webcam is blurry. There we go, fixed it. Worst time for Lafayette. If we go back to the radar here and time it out, Lafayette looks to be impacted as early as 8 p.m. there. We see Lafayette is on the map right here. And there's a storm approaching from the northwest here. And again, storm motion, if you guys couldn't see, is going to be from northwest to southeast at about 40 or so miles per hour. Angie, that is a great question. She asks, how is Crown Point looking for tornadoes? That is a great question. And I'll go ahead and answer that very simply put. If you live in close proximity to Lake Michigan, up here where it's cold, your risk tomorrow for tornadoes is quite low. For hail, it's still a concern. But for tornadoes, we need warm, moist air. And because that lake breeze and the cold front coming through, it basically cools you guys off early on in the evening. That tells us that our risk tomorrow is going to be more so hail up there by Lake Michigan. And that's for the immediate shoreline areas. We're not talking a huge wide area of Indiana, but if you live in the northern part of those counties that butt up to Lake Michigan, you guys are looking like a more of a hail risk than anything tornadic in nature. So you should be good tomorrow up there by Lake Michigan. Samantha asks, do you think it could be raised up to level 4 out of 5 tomorrow? Samantha, great question. I do not think the SPC will go moderate risk with this event. I do think the enhanced does cover the risks well, especially because it's a hail risk, and the hail threat definitely is real tomorrow, but I don't think it's enough to bump up to a level 4. Yeah, I would not be shocked tomorrow if the SPC were to trim that risk northward. I do think the risk overall is shifted a little bit too far to the south. They could probably trim it back to Bloomington, but again, that's my personal opinion. They're the experts. I'm just going off what I see based off model data that's at my fingertips this evening. So I would not be shocked, though, to see a little bit of a trim back on that southern portion, just because storms look to really weaken around the I-70 corridor. Another thing to keep in mind tomorrow, you guys may have been hearing this from other sources as well. Excuse me. The storms tomorrow, there's a cold front coming through from north to south. And when you have a cold front driven setup like this, if storms are ahead of that cold front, that means they're in a warm sector. That means there's usually a wind and hail threat as well as a tornado threat. But in the event of a couple days ago, we had a lot of storms. Those are behind the cold front in what we call the cold sector. There's a chance tomorrow these storms get behind the cold front in the cold sector. If that were to happen, that would pretty much eliminate all of the tornadic risk associated with the system tomorrow. But again, uncertainty with that is still up in the air. So we're not going to really say one way or the other. But that's a scenario that could really downplay the overall tornadic risk and also wind risk as well. It will diminish the wind risk, not entirely, but it will diminish the wind risk as well if that happens. So we'll keep an eye on the storms tomorrow, also location of the cold front to keep a close eye and see if that lines up or doesn't line up. Your severe threat for Terre Haute currently is a level 2 out of 5. However, you guys are basically along I-70. And when you get along in South I-70, we're seeing a risk that really diminishes past midnight. We're going to see some storms and some rain for sure. Overall risk, though, from what we see right now, is on the lower end of things for you guys along in South I-70. Can you circle the area for higher tornadic risk? Based on what we see here at IWN, I can do that. I'll show you the SPC outlook as well. But really, we're concerned right about in this area, for anything tornadic. I'm going to butt into the area up there by Lake Michigan because it's too cold up there. The area we're most concerned about for tornadoes is up there in that black box I just drew. As those storms first cross into the state between, we're going to say 6 and 9 p.m., that's your window of opportunity for storms to produce tornadoes. And then if you're basing it off the SPC, they do have a risk all the way down to Bloomington. However, we feel that's a little bit excessive, just a bit excessive. We feel that the risk is definitely cut off more so toward I-70 especially, but the highest risk for sure in that black box I just drew a minute ago. Is the capping inversion helping keep a small tornadic threat? Eric, it is not really the main factor limiting tomorrow. The main factor limiting is going to be the cold front positioning and also the overall timing of this event. But yes, the capping can play a role in keeping that threat lower, but tomorrow I think it's going to be coming down to the cold front more than the capping. Brittany asks, is Fort Wayne going to get hit bad? I take it. Brittany, Fort Wayne, I would say, is probably in the heart of this threat tomorrow evening. So definitely have ways to receive warnings. If you live anywhere really in the risk area, but especially across North Indiana as these storms progress from northwest to southeast. Again, main time frame that we're really keying in on is between, we're going to say 5 to 7 p.m. to start, as late as about 1 to 3 a.m. Kyle asked, do you think Bloomington will go marginal? I mean, technically it's on the line right now, but I would not be shocked to see them bump that up further. So I wouldn't be shocked to wake up if Bloomington in a marginal. Felicia asks, what is a cap? A cap, very simply put, is a layer of warm air up in the atmosphere that prevents storms from really reaching their full potential. You can still have hail-producing storms with a cap, but it's very difficult to get tornadoes as well as damaging wind with a cap. Basically, think of it as you're boiling pasta on your oven. It starts boiling, and instead of letting it boil over like thunderstorms like to do in the atmosphere, you put a cap on it. You put a lid on it. And all of a sudden, all that boiling water and foam is contained. That's basically what a cap is. Very simple analogy. That is a very good way, Samantha, to put it. It all depends on how fast that cold front comes crashing in. Regardless of that cold front timing, the hail risk tomorrow will still exist. And that's why we're most concerned about it. But also potential for hail that's pretty large. We're talking larger than golf balls tomorrow, or really possible. So keep that in mind. But if that cold front comes through too quick, that will pretty much minimize anything tornadic-wise, and it will greatly diminish the wind risk as well. Not entirely with the wind, but it will bring it down some. Do you think the enhanced risk will be expanded northward? Asked Chad. I do not. I do not think it'll be brought northward. If it does, maybe just a slight tad bit, but overall, I think it's well placed by the SPC. Do you think the morning storms will zap the atmosphere a bit for the evening ones? Asks Faith. A good question, and the answer for that is no. We have a lot of warm, moist air getting brought up. It should destabilize very easily tomorrow. So that is not expected to be a huge concern. Plus, what's happening tonight is going to really end really early, like sunrise time. So we'll have plenty all day to really destabilize the atmosphere. So overall, no. What happens this morning, tonight, tomorrow morning is not going to affect the atmosphere. Will North Indiana have any risk for tornadoes? Asks Joe. The answer is yes. I think North Indiana is in the greatest risk tomorrow for anything tornadic. But again, it's a conditional risk. I do think it's going to come down to the timing of these storms. But again, the window for anything tornadic that we see is across North Indiana between 6 and 9 p.m. After that, if you live in central Indiana, the risk really starts to diminish after those storms congeal into a line and push southward. We lose instability. We also lose the favorable storm mode. Tornadoes like to produce themselves with storms that are by themselves. They can still produce in a line, but tomorrow's event is not supposed to be a line segment. It's supposed to be more of these individual cells to start, then congeal into a line, but that line will not hold off very long. The support for QLCS, we call them, is not very high tomorrow. Austin, I wish I was a genie who could answer that question, but unfortunately I cannot specifically answer if your town will be hit tomorrow by a specific hazard. I can tell you definitely have a threat tomorrow, but I can't tell you if it's going to be specific to your town. That's the beauty of weather. It happens on a widespread basis, and though nothing may happen at your house, 10 miles down the road they could have a barn destroyed from wind or, windows shattered from hail. That's just how weather works. Will we have any hail with the early morning storms? Good question, Samantha. Small hail is possible. Large hail, unlikely. I mean small by like pea size. Real small. Chad asks, is hail the greatest threat? The answer is yes, Chad. I would expect hail to be the most reported severe hazard tomorrow in the state. Between wind, hail, and tornadoes, hail will be likely number one by quite a bit. The question I have, I guess not a question, but the curiosity I have is how large the hail is going to get, because we're seeing ingredients come together that we could be looking at some pretty large hail. We could be talking in excess of golf ball size. I would not be shocked to see a couple tennis ball size reports. But again, that's best case or worst case scenario for these storms at that point. But overall, between quarters and we'll say golf balls will be quite common. Also, a good note here, a lot of people always ask us after events like, well, there was forecasted 80 mile per hour winds or tennis ball size hail, but didn't get anything. You got to think as well, when you forecast, you look at the entire ingredients as a whole in the atmosphere. So even though you may not have got anything close to you, it still may have fell elsewhere. And then also sometimes it doesn't fall at all. The atmosphere, looking at the atmosphere tomorrow, it's very favorable for hail. And it's favorable for large hail, very large hail as well. So that we have to mention the risk, because if we didn't, at that point, then it happens, no one's prepared for it. And that's the beauty of weather forecasting. It's basically taking a best guess with the data you have. So it's not always going to come out to fruition, but we do our best with what we have. Could the hail threat diminish if the QLCS forms too early? I don't expect tomorrow to be a QLCS, a full-blown QLCS, but once, if and when storms congeal into a line, yes, the hail threat will diminish greatly. Laura, the time tomorrow for the start, English. The time tomorrow for a start time of storms will be 5 to 7 p.m. We'll go ahead and walk you guys through the timing of this one more time here. For those of you just tuning in, this is your future radar tomorrow. Potential radar, not supposed to be identical, so don't take it out verbatim. But it's a good idea. 7 p.m. here, we see storms north Indiana. Here's 8 p.m. At their worst, between 6 and 9 p.m. Here's 9 p.m. Here's 10 p.m. You're going to start noticing as we push later on, the storms weaken. Here's 11 p.m. Here's 12, midnight. Here's 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So really focused in north half of the state between 5 at the earliest, but likely a little bit later on than that. And really ramps up between 6 and 9 p.m. and then kind of diminishes from there onward as we get closer to midnight and after midnight. Yes, Samantha. Appreciate it. We will be live tomorrow. We do have chasers going out in the field. Excuse me. So we'll be live here. We'll probably be live before the storms enter the state. So between 6, we'll say 6 and 7 p.m., we'll plan a live stream beginning. And as they get close to the Indiana state line, we'll go live. We'll get you guys up to speed and go from there. Because we do expect tomorrow to be quite a widespread event, and that fits our criteria to go live for. So this threat, Judy, just for clarification, for Judy and anybody else watching who's confused, the severe threat is for tomorrow night, Thursday night, which is March 26th. Tonight, which is Wednesday night, there is no risk tonight for severe weather. There's a couple thunderstorms possible, but severe weather is not expected with those storms. Kelly asks a good question here. People say living in a valley where two rivers meet, can a tornado hit that area? Yes, it can, Kelly. In fact, just a couple of years ago, we had a tornado in Indiana down by the Ohio River that crossed two rivers, the Ohio River, another little branch in, in a valley. So tornadoes do not discriminate against any terrain. So keep that in mind. Old myth of, hey, they can't cross bodies of water or stuff like that, completely false. They can and they do. And we have examples all over the place in America of that happening. Yeah, overall, Juno, the threat should be wrapping up just after midnight, we feel. Really peaking, I guess depends on what you call mid to late evening, but between 6 and 9 p.m., or call it mid-evening time frame, will be the heart of the threat. And after that, a slow diminishing trend close to midnight, and then after midnight, the threat becomes quite low. Yes, I would expect a watch to be issued tomorrow. More than likely a severe watch, but again, that's up to the discretion of the Weather Service. I don't think the risk tomorrow for tornadoes is high enough to warrant concern for a tornado watch. That's my opinion. But again, if these storms, as they move into the state, as we've been discussing, if they're out ahead of the cold front, they're in that unstable, warm environment that they could produce tornadoes. But it's going to be a very short window for it to happen. So North Indiana, 6 to 9 p.m. is really the only risk I see for anything tornadic occurring. Anything after that will be quite minimal in nature as a weekend for number one, but also two congeal into a line, which both of those kind of negate the fact for tornado support. Dawn asks, how about Northwest Indiana? If you live in immediate proximity to Lake Michigan, you are having a hail risk, but your severe risk is quite low. And that's thanks to this lake breeze and cold front coming off of Lake Michigan here that keeps the very far top 3 counties of Indiana by Lake Michigan cold. So you have a hail risk with storms that they impact you, but tornadic risk and wind risk is quite low up there, all thanks to that cold front and the cold air that's in place there across the area. So otherwise, outside of that region, you do have a concern for severe weather. No problem, David. We're going to wrap things up here. I do want to poll you guys in chat here. What time tomorrow should we do a live update? We'll do it in the morning or afternoon before the event starts. What time works best for the majority of you guys tomorrow for a live update? And of course, we'll be live in the evening with coverage with our chasers out there. We'll talk about new warnings and who should take shelter and so on and so forth. But between now and then, I want to do another briefing update for you guys on latest data information. So give me a time frame that works best for you guys. I'll take the majority vote and kind of see. Brittany says afternoon. Cliff says 2 p.m. Okay, so afternoon winning so far. Juno says afternoon. Teresa says 5. That's a little late, Teresa. I'd like to be live before then just because 5 is getting a little bit too close to the event itself. Latest I'd do it's probably right around 3 or 4. Has says noon. So I'm getting a lot of like mid-afternoon time frames. So let's go for like 2:30. 2:30. Let's go 2:30 p.m. Eastern time for a briefing tomorrow. We'll go ahead and lock that in, get it scheduled once I'm off the stream here. We'll do 2:30 for an update. That gives us time to review the latest update from the SPC as well as new models coming in. So we'll have a lot of data to go over tomorrow afternoon. 2:30 we'll be live on Facebook and YouTube. All right, cool. Glad that's settled. All right, appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to hop out of here. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 2:30. In the meantime, if you live in the risk area, especially across North Indiana, make sure you have ways to receive warnings, not just one way, but multiple ways to receive warnings tomorrow, as well as a plan in place and your shelter ready just in case you need to take shelter tomorrow. In the meantime, if you're just tuning in, we're going to hop out of here now, but you are welcome to rewind and watch it from the beginning. We talk about the hazards, the timing, the areas impacted, our thoughts, as well as the SPC's thoughts. It's all in this stream here. So back it up on YouTube or Facebook. Once the stream is over, you can toggle back and rewatch it. In the meantime, thanks for watching, guys. I will be on here tomorrow, 2:30 for an update, as well as live right around 7 o'clock or so, give or take, for tomorrow's coverage. Have a safe evening, guys.